All right, everyone, I'll go ahead and get started because I know we're a little bit behind. My name is Nick Quint. I'm over the Sustainable Transportation Department, and I'm here to talk about sustainable transportation as it relates to the climate action commitment. So the specific goal we'll be talking about is Goal 9, which is to reduce single occupancy vehicle commuting to campus by 20% by 2025, and to reduce transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. So we're talking about getting people on the bus, or walking, or biking more, as opposed to driving alone. Even carpooling falls under that category. And we're also talking about transitioning vehicles to EVs or alternative fuel sources. So a little bit about kind of what we've accomplished. One of the most important things that I felt we needed to do was figure out a way to kind of measure progress towards this goal, and specifically figure out how many people are driving alone, and kind of where we need to be in 2025. We were using data from transportation surveys. There was a survey that, or there still is a survey that goes out every other year. But the problem with that data was that people would self-select into the survey. There were some accuracy issues. And so what we've transitioned to is using parking permit data, which is much more accurate. Still has some problems, still room to make some tweaks to improve accuracy. But we're getting a much clearer picture of how many people are actually driving alone to campus. And so you can see that here in the graph. The maroon line shows the drive alone rate for all of any university community member who would commute to campus. So we're not including students who live on campus. And you can see the gray line, which is our target, kind of where we need to be. So we almost made it in 2021, but unfortunately COVID kind of skewed things there. So we can see we're actually kind of trending in the wrong direction. Hopefully we can get it together here in the next couple of years and meet that goal. EV charging stations. We installed 3 charging stations in the Squires lot in November of 2018. Utilization has kind of steadily picked up since then. And in fact, February and March of this year have been some of our best months so far. Each charging station has 2 plugs, so there's a total of 6 ports. One of those spaces is for ADA vehicles. The one nice thing that we've been able to do here is we've allowed people to use the spaces only while they're charging their vehicles. So we're able to rotate vehicles through, make the most use of the limited number of charging stations that we have on campus. BT currently has 10 electric buses in their fleet. That's up from 5 a year ago. It's 19% of their fleet. They've got 12 more that are kind of on order that should arrive in the next 16 months, which will get that percentage up to 42%. A really great success story. They're a leader in Virginia in this regard. They also have 9 hybrid electric buses and plans to be fully electric in less than 10 years, provided they have the funding. So we're really glad that we're able to kind of benefit from that, even though they're a department within the town of Blacksburg. We've made several improvements related to bike parking. Since 2020, we've installed 62 bike racks on campus with a net capacity of 382 bicycles. So in some instances, we're replacing damaged racks. In other instances, we're adding capacity where more is needed. Part of that ties into our annual bike census, which really kind of started in 2019 but had to take a pause because of COVID-19. We were able to kind of get that underway again this past fall, and we'll move forward with kind of doing this on an annual basis. So what that entails is going out at a particular time when there are a lot of classes taking place, and just surveying every bike rack, looking at condition of the rack, but also utilization, so we can kind of monitor how racks are being utilized. These things change as spaces on campus get used in different ways. And so then we're able to address needs where there's additional capacity or where a bike rack has fallen into disrepair. We've got over 450 bike racks on campus, so it's a lot for just me to keep track of, so it's nice to do this once a year and just make sure we're not missing anything. And then the last thing I'll mention is we've redesigned the covered bike rack, extending the roof of it and adding walls to 3 sides. You can see a picture here. It's just kind of a nice improvement that helps to legitimize bicycling as a form of transportation. So some things that are in progress. I feel like I've been talking about this since I started here 40 years ago. Denny probably was talking about it well before then. The Multimodal Transit Facility, or MMTF, as we sometimes refer to it, is just a huge transformational project that's currently under construction around the Perry Street Garage. You can see the garage in the center of this image. To the right and left of it, there are 2 bus slips with a total of 17, there were 2 bus loops with a total of 17 slips for buses. This is primarily for BT, but also for all regional transit services. So you don't have to worry about, does this bus pick up at Squires or south of the stadium anymore? Everything will be in one centralized location, all serviced by BT, so will really help improve efficiency with the BT system, of course, but also just with all the transit services that stop on campus. Also, just below the parking garage here, that brown rectangle is a new 2-story building that's under construction, which will be half occupied by BT and half by the Sustainable Transportation Department. So for BT, it will include an indoor waiting area with information services, also some offices and kind of a lounge area for drivers. And then for Sustainable Transportation, we'll move the Hokie Bike Hub into the space, and also our offices. So it'll be a much more visible location. It'll be really great when it's done. A lot of people ask this question. So construction is supposed to wrap up this fall. BT needs some time to do some training and to get some technology. Kind of each bus stop will have signs, that variable messaging signs. So they'll need some time to kind of work out those kinks. They think January is when they'll begin using the MMTF, and that goes for the regional transit services as well. So one exciting thing that's happened is Fleet Services has purchased its first electric vehicle, and it's actually kind of en route to Fleet Services right now. There have been some delays, but it's on its way. This is not only Fleet Services' first electric vehicle, but as far as I know, the first EV for Virginia Tech's fleet. First EV that's not used for research purposes. So a really exciting development. We've got a long way to go, but it's nice to finally have that first one purchased, and like I said, arriving soon. We're also kind of working to install more EV charging stations on campus to help with the transition, and to kind of do some planning and develop strategies to figure out how we're going to move forward with getting departments to purchase more EVs and transition their fleets. Some other things that we've kind of, we're thinking about but haven't quite moved forward with yet. This past year we lost quite a few transportation options. Bike share and car share kind of ceased operations over the summer. They pulled out for different reasons. And then the spin scooter study that was being conducted by VTTI wrapped up at the end of May. And so we're kind of, we're working to issue another RFP for bike share and possibly scooter share services. There's a working group meeting to kind of look over sort of the programs, the programs that were operating on campus in the past, and make a recommendation whether or not to move forward with that. So I think it's safe to say bike share will move forward. The scooters is kind of to be determined. And then car share is really a tough one. Zipcar was on campus, but they pulled out due to business reasons, and we've worked with some other vendors to see if they could possibly operate on campus. It seems like we might need to make some policy changes on campus before it makes business sense for a car share company to operate again. Namely, not allowing freshmen who live on campus to bring a car on campus. So we'll continue to evaluate that and see if we can bring someone back on campus, because I know that was a valuable service to many students and some staff as well. Some other things that are in progress. The Climate Action Commitment implementation guide that came out shortly after the Climate Action Commitment was adopted included a transportation demand management master plan, which would be very helpful in kind of setting out steps that we need to take to achieve Goal 9. We have scoped this out, currently are awaiting funding for that, but hopefully there's still a chance we could get it for next fiscal year. So hopefully that moves forward in the near term. Another item that we've kind of talked about quite a bit, but we're sort of waiting on some leadership changes, is vehicle total cost of ownership calculator, which would require university departments to look at the total cost of ownership of an internal combustion engine vehicle and an electric vehicle, and then if the EV was the cheaper option, they would be required to purchase that. This is something that the state has done, so it's a matter of just piggybacking off of their process using their calculator, which launched at the end of last year. We've currently have a fleet of 10 bikes, and we're looking to launch a long-term bike rental program in the fall. There's also a green RFP program proposal out there to expand this program. But this would basically allow students to rent bikes by the semester or year. We're thinking this is going to be great for international students, exchange students, or even just students who are maybe interested in biking but not ready to make that commitment and purchase a bike on their own. And then I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we're continuing to strategize on where best to install the next EV charging stations. We have several locations that will come online in this next year at Fleet Services, as well as in the Perry Street parking garage. But we know that more are needed, certainly. So there's several ways people can get involved. The first I'll mention is the Carbon Neutral Fleet and Carbon Neutral Commuting Subcommittee, which meets at least once a semester. We talk about these kind of issues and what can be done to help advance us. The Green RFP program has also been really great for my department. It's funded a lot of bike racks. I mentioned the long-term bike rental program or expansion of that. Also bike repair stands across campus and some other things as well. we host several events throughout the year, and so we're always looking for help if you're interested in volunteering in one of those. We actually just had Bike to Campus Day this morning. We had several pit stops across campus. And I'll also throw in a plug for BT's strategic plan, which is underway right now. It's a 10-year plan, or sorry, it looks 10 years into the future. And there's currently a survey open as part of their stakeholder engagement. And it's just a few minutes. There's also a mapping component to that. So please, if you haven't taken it already, the web address is there, and you can do that. So that's really it for me. I didn't provide my contact info on this slide, but I've got cards if anyone needs them. But are there any questions? Yes.
What is the electricity source for the EV charging stations?
So we're just plugged into to the electric grid. I guess Nam could probably speak to that better than I could. If you want to jump in.
Yeah, it's service provided by Virginia Tech Electric Service. So we get our electricity both from the power plant, and the majority of it comes from AEP, the supply.
Okay, thank you.
I will add that there is at least one manufacturer who makes a solar-powered EV charging station, and that's something that's been kicked around. But it's at this point it was decided it was kind of cost prohibitive. It's much more expensive than just hardwiring in.
But your point being that we had to procure the clean energy that comes from that. So you just can't just dismiss it just because you use electric vehicles. That's well taken, and that's something that we will address as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to find out, bicycles, are they going to be electric bicycles?
Sorry, which bicycles are you speaking?
For the rental?
So they will not be electric bicycles. Yeah, so bike share, when we had bike share on campus, it started out as kind of a non-electric fleet, and then there was an upgrade kind of partway through. And we did see a jump in utilization because of that. So I do think it's important to offer that to people, especially in a hilly place like Blacksburg. But I think there's a benefit to the long-term bike rental program in that it's more convenient for folks. They can take the bike to their house. They don't have to return it to one of the hubs in the area. So I still think it'll be well utilized, and it's certainly something we can look to adopting in the future. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I'm wondering about the bus charging. Is that going to be a challenge, or is that pretty straightforward, or do you know much about that? Because it's so much bigger than a car.
Right. So I know a little bit. I can talk about what I do know. They currently have 2 charging stations. There are 3 more that they're planning to be installed before these additional 12 buses are kind of in town. So they've been kind of playing around with which routes work well for electric buses, and I think this is also an aspect of the transit strategic plan that I mentioned that they're undergoing. Sort of tailoring routes to electric buses so that they can have the buses on route for an extended period of time. I know once they come into the Blacksburg Transit Department at the end of the night, they have staff that are there throughout the night that are able to rotate the buses to make sure that they're all charged, ready to go for the next day. So I guess that's working well for them now. I haven't heard any issues about about that.
Good, that's good.
Yes.
Are there?
Sure.
Thank you. Are there plans to like implement any more like bicycle lanes or taking away on-street parking or possibly like road diets to or maybe like improving or widening existing bicycle lanes or improving like markings or signage?
So there are plans, the master plan calls for quite a few additional bike lanes on campus. There have been more developments in terms of like bike infrastructure since the master plan was developed, and so I don't know if you're familiar with like protected bike lanes, but like a barrier separated bike lane, which is now sort of seen as kind of necessary to getting more people on bikes, to making people feel more comfortable. That was not included in the master plan, although there are some various kind of trail type improvements. It's called green links, sort of trails running from the residential side of campus to the academic side through the drill field. Those are kind of more ADA type improvements, but will certainly benefit bicyclists. I think, let's see, getting from like the residential side of campus to the academic side, if you're not going to take one of the roads, there's kind of like one common pathway to kind of navigate through that doesn't involve stairs. So that'll be huge, making that happen. But that transportation demand management master plan that I mentioned, we'll certainly look at that as well and see what we need to do. There's been a lot of interest from students in bike lane improvements, and for goodness, I think at least 3 years now, there have been proposals submitted for bike lanes across campus. Unfortunately, it's too much for the Green RFP program, so one thing we need to work on is figuring out how to make that happen, how to move those projects forward, because we do see interest in doing that.
All right, if there aren't any more questions, we can move on to our next speaker, but thank you, Nick.